I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour, and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show, Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to another Purple Roads. I'm so glad to have you here. So excited to have another show. This is Carrie Stinson, and this has just been a blast. I want to thank all the fans for watching this show. All the feedback has been amazing. It's just been so exciting, and really excited about our guest today. We got a lot of surprises today. We're starting a new segment on Purple Roads called Open Road. This show has gotten... I've gotten introduced to so many people in the kids and pop culture, and I met a lady named Wendy Gilhula, who has a character called Pika Says, and Pika Says is she's got 3 books. Pika Bunny Says Eep, Pika Bunny Has a Big Question, and Pika Bunny and the Thunderstorm. And these are books to help kids through the tough times of growing up and through kindness, which of course I was all about for all those years with Barney. And so I love what she's doing. It's such an interesting concept and what she's doing with these books. She also has a kindness app. Pika Bunny Says Kindness. It's a kindness app that you can find on iTunes and on Google. You can also find Wendy and her message in Pika Bunny Says at wendygilhula.com and Pika Bunny Says on Instagram. And I think not too long from now we'll actually have Wendy on the show, and very excited about that. So good luck with what's going on, and so excited for Pika Bunny Says. We had a couple episodes. We had one of my really good friends, Josh Martin, on. And I had to bring him back today with who we have as a guest. So I've got Josh Martin back with me.
Hello.
My Barney friend that I've known, goodness gracious, I don't know how it's 25 years now.
Thanks for having me.
But it is. And, you know, Josh, when you were on last time, we were talking about, I had some questions for you about Barney and our travels.
Yeah.
But you've slipped into the world of Majin Buu, and we really hadn't talked about that a whole lot, Dragon Ball Z, so I wanted to ask you a few questions with that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. What was the first, the transition into going into the anime world from Barney?
Wow. Well, oddly enough, I went from being purple to being pink, so that was a kind of a natural progression, both kind of wide hips, so that wasn't too big of a stretch.
Right.
But, you know, it was different because now I was out of the costume.
Sure.
And I was providing the voice,
right.
Whereas all the time before I was lip syncing or
sure.
dino syncing, as we called it.
Yes.
So that was different. Some similarities, though, were our breath control, if you can believe that or not. As you are well aware,
yes,
the importance of breath control in the costume. But as it carries over into the voiceover world too, because especially in anime, there's a lot of fight sequences and long periods of screaming and you know, fighting and other things like that, and exerting efforts, and so I was pretty well conditioned for all of that.
Now, obviously, I know the challenges that we had with Barney.
Yes.
And Dino Sync and the lip sync aspect of it was definitely a big challenge. And we talked about this in the last couple episodes that we had with all the Dragon Ball Z, which was just so awesome. And Chris Sabat and Justin Cook last week were just, I'm still getting past that. Yeah. It was amazing. But what is it for you, the challenge of syncing up and working with other actors that you aren't with? They're not there. You're either starting it or matching up to what they've been doing.
Right. Yeah. I'd say in the beginning, I was next. I was one of the last people to put their parts down.
Okay.
Just because there were so few lines for me in the beginning, and so many other people to try and coordinate.
Sure.
later on, as I got into it, it just kind of became second nature. There was a lot of catching up, kind of figuring out what this story was about. But it was. I had great directors like Chris Sabat,
sure.
Justin Cook, people to help me along, give me the 411 and help me, be a part of it without falling too far behind.
Sure. What got you to go from body costume actor to voiceover actor?
Wow. Well, I was performing with Chris Rager.
Okay. Yeah.
In a comedy troupe. We had started comedy troupes.
From Dragon Ball Z, Mr.
Yes,
Satan.
Exactly. We had met at KD's studio here in Dallas, Texas. And we had been in comedy troupes together all that time during school. And after I came off the road doing Barney, I got back into the comedy scene with the boys. And while doing that, Chris Sabat came to one of our shows and saw me do one of my characters and thought that kind of character would fit with the Majin Buu character that was coming up in their show.
And what was that character?
The character in the comedy show was named the Pillsbury Homeboy. As you may be able to surmise, that was a take on the Pillsbury Doughboy, except he was a gangster rapping homeboy. In this case, the story was he got jumped on his way home from school one day by the rival gang, the Keebler Elves. And it just kind of, flipped that switch, triggered him, and went home, kind of stewed for a while, and came out a gangster rapper. So, yeah.
And then that took you to Majin Buu?
And then Sabat saw me do that, and he saw Majin Buu coming up with just this big pink monster kind of thing that has childlike tendencies. He only wants to turn things into candy and chocolate and eat them, and doesn't realize that he's being controlled by an evil entity that's making him kill people. And so that was the dynamic there was cute and evil, which was kind of the take on the Pillsbury Homeboy that I made. And luckily Sabat had the wherewithal to give me a shot, and 20 years later, here I am.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then now you're out there in the Comic-Cons doing all of them across the country.
It's amazing, yeah. After 20 years of doing it, you go into the booth, you do it, it comes out. And when I started back in 2000, without the internet being what it is now, I didn't know. I had never even seen most of my episodes, much less known whether anybody else had seen it or cared. But now I'm on the convention scene, and it's pretty obvious that there's a large number of people that did watch, that did care, and actually still care and continue to care. It's not going anywhere, that Dragon Ball Z.
Which is amazing. Now, what is it like for you when they find out what you used to do as well? So they find out about Barney. They're a fan of Majin Buu, and then they find out about the big purple dinosaur.
That blows their mind even more, because, you look at me, and I don't look like I should necessarily sound like, me, you are. And so kids will come up to the table, and they'll see the pictures and be like, that's not you. Then I'll do it, and they'll be, oh my gosh, it is you. And then they'll see a picture of the purple one, and they'll be like, wait, what's that? I'm like, I used to wear that costume. Oh my. I've had people run away from the table, and I'm not joking, never come back. Like their mind was just blown that much. Some come back and I'm so sorry. I just couldn't believe it. Can I get a picture? Can I, you changed my life. You were so great with my brother or child or whatever. It's pretty amazing. And then, again, back doing the voices in the booth, you don't get the direct reciprocation from the audience. And then back in the day when we were doing the purple one, sometimes you didn't get that direct feedback from the people.
Yeah, and like I probably more than anyone did so many live performances with Barney. So I got more of that than most,
and I
if
probably
not all of them. And you got a lot of it too because you did that. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like that. There is nothing like that.
And you didn't. Some of the kids back then weren't necessarily able to articulate how much they loved it. Besides screaming and going crazy,
screaming and blowing kisses,
but now they're adults. They're just
out,
like, listen, you know what? That made a huge difference on my life, and I'm an adult, and and I can say that, and I'm happy about it.
Well, and it's so cool because you can appreciate it, right? You were in all the hospitals, and once again, all the performances and how much they loved it, and so you have this appreciation. This is one of the things I love about this show, is letting our audience see how much every single person that's been on this show cares about what they do, cares about them. We understand, when you're spending the money and you're spending the time. But no, we weren't just people taking a paycheck. We absolutely love what we do, and we respect it very much.
Had to. Yeah, I can't imagine doing it without.
Well, you're sitting here talking about people can't imagine Majin Buu when they see your face. Right. And I think our guest here today, you'll be surprised. We've got another amazing voiceover actor today.
I agree. I think you're right.
I'm going to let you introduce him.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this character and the voice.
Maybe you should let him do the voice and introduce him.
Let's see if you can recognize his voice. That's right.
I just got nervous right there.
That's right. Get your fireballs and your turtle shells ready. It's Kenny James, voice of Bowser from Super Mario. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
It was so hard for me to sit here and be quiet. I kept wanting to interject little questions.
Right.
Welcome, Kenny. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great.
I can't even tell you, Josh, when I was talking about having Kenny on, people were freaking out.
Right.
Bowser from Yes.
I get.
Do you realize how popular?
No, it's starting to sink in, but it's taking a while. But I get the same thing you guys were talking about, where people like they come up to my table and be like, "You're like the voice of my childhood," and I have to wrap my head around that. I'm all like, "Oh wow, oh yeah, huh."
It's pretty deep, isn't it? When you start thinking that.
It is. It's really bizarre. I kind of got into it later than most probably, but I've been Bowser for 15 years.
Okay.
And just started doing cons in mid-2018. So people are still just finding out that I'm a real person. So every con I didn't even know that it was a person did the voice. I'm like, except for Smash.
What is their concept? What was their idea of where that voice came from? If it wasn't you.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just thought it was all generated somehow. And with Smash, they do use animal sounds.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had a fan come up to the table one day and said, "How come in Smash you sound more like Godzilla?" And I was like, "'Cause it's not me." Mm-hmm. I had that producer likes using animal sounds. So, I don't know what they use, some combination, but. He's more vicious looking in that game too. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but I would have done it.
How did you get into it? How did you get the part of Bowser?
Well, I tell people all the time it was the right place at the right time kind of a situation, like a lot of people.
Definitely my story, and I think yours too.
It's I fell into it. I was working. I used to be a extruded curb cement mason, right? I was a finisher. Okay. We'd extrude curb and I was a finisher, and I paint stripes really straight. So I was working this, and then I decided, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to do voice acting. I'd already been singing in bands for a while, and so the performance aspect that was already there. I wasn't scared to go in front of people and do stuff.
What kind of bands? What kind of music?
Well, they were all rock bands.
Okay.
Yeah.
The hair probably tells me a little bit there.
And it's short now, but it's coming back. But I had been doing these bands, and then I decided, I've always wanted to do the voice thing, so I got a website, right? And I thought I was on my way. I got Kenny James. I think I had Kenny James voice at first. And I built this little HTML website that I coded myself. It was terrible, but it worked.
Yeah.
And I had gone over to the University of Washington Experimental Campus in Seattle and taken this voiceover course with Nigel Lloyd Neal. I think he was more of a commercial actor than anything else.
Okay.
And he produced a demo for me, and I had this 3-minute long demo. It was a mishmash of character work and straight commercial stuff. And I was working for Suburban Propane. I did that for a long time. And I was working with my service manager at a house in Bainbridge Island, which people up there know that Bainbridge Island's kind of snooty. Sorry.
All right. What part of the country is?
It's Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
Around, it's across Puget Sound from Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Is where I lived. I lived in Bremerton, and I was working, and I'm talking about doing these one-liners for this cat in Canada, where the guy was paying me like $8 a pop on PayPal, the early days of PayPal, and I was doing Scooby for him and stuff, or it was for answering machines and stuff. So he'd be like, "Hey, Scoob, answer the phone, man," and he'd be like, and he's like giving me $8. I'm like, "I'm on my way." Well, I was talking about it while we I was talking about it while we were working, and the customer, the lady, she overhears it, and she goes, do you do voice work? And I said, well, I hear voices, and sometimes they come out. And she goes, do you have a demo? And luckily, I already had one. So I gave her...
That you recorded yourself?
No. That was the one that was recorded by the guy who taught the course.
Oh, okay.
Nigel Lloyd Neal. And so I gave her the web address. And she went and listened to it. Then she had her 14-year-old son listen to it, and they both went, So it turns out she's a part-time producer at Bad Animal Studios in Seattle,
okay,
which is where Nintendo records, or at least were. And she gave my name to the production manager over there, and they started sending me auditions. And I did four different characters for Sly Cooper 3, and I didn't get any of them. And I was so bummed. I was like, I thought I did really good. I guess I suck. And, it turns out...
It's that we're learning about that a lot of times it has nothing to do with that.
Nope.
In this business, you end up learning that. At first, you think it's because you suck, but you learn that...
You got to learn to take rejection really quickly, or you're just not gonna be able to manage it.
Absolutely.
But shortly after that, they sent me the Bowser one, and I went, that's ridiculous. Never going to get that, but I'll throw it together. I recorded it in my dining room, with my straight mic stand sitting on a rug so it wouldn't pick up the floor, and I threw together I know this is really long-winded, but I threw together the lines. They sent me the previous Bowser's lines from Super Mario Sunshine and his actual tracks, including just outtakes and all. Oh, really? And I was like, all right, well, they want, obviously, if they're sending me this as a reference, they want me to sound like that. I thought it was direct replacement was happening. And so I did the whole Super Mario Sunshine thing. Mario, how dare you interrupt my family vacation? And stuff like that. And I was like, okay, sent it off and tried to forget about it. And I don't know, it was only 2 weeks later, I think, I got an email that said, you got the job. And I was all like, uh-oh, now what do I do? I had been in a studio recording music before,
right,
but I had never stood in front of a mic to do real voice work that wasn't in my kitchen.
Right.
So I got out of the frying pan, and as they say, and started throwing fireballs. So
Nice.
That's how that happened, and no short form. I keep looking at this camera, so...
We've got plenty of them here, so
I know.
you're covered. Yeah, you're covered. When did you realize how big Nintendo, or did you know how big it was?
Oh, no, I knew how big it was. I just didn't know how long I was going to last or anything. Mm-hmm. So the first session that they pulled me in for was for Super Mario Strikers, the tail end of the GameCube. And shortly after that, they were getting ready to launch the Wii. And they had me in, and I think I recorded Mario Kart Wii and galaxy at the same time in one session. So that one tore me up a bit because going for 4 hours can get kind of painful.
I can imagine.
So I managed to get through it, and then I said to the director, I said, I can speak English, right? I'm all trying to barter for speaking roles from Nintendo. It's not going to happen.
Right.
The games really don't have any speaking roles.
Right.
I mean, Bowser speaks Bowserese, and I think in 15 years, I think I've said 4 words in English. I think, so.
Do you remember those 4 words?
Yeah. It is Mario, Peach, Nintendo, and Showtime. I think that's all. That's all of them. And the Showtime, when I get requests for that, it's what game was that? Does anybody out there remember?
Oh, I promise you they do. I promise you they do.
It was Bowser's Inside Story.
Okay.
And whenever he's going to go into battle, he would do the Showtime, and everybody goes, yay!
Yeah.
How long does it take to record for a game?
I'll do anywhere 2 to 4 hours. With I want to think it was 3D World. There was a lot of work for Bowser, and that included the cat power-ups. So they had this Meowser, and seriously, that's what the script said. I turned the page on the script. We had been going through jumps and falls and things, and then I turned the page and it says, in quotes, it says Meowser, and I laughed. I went, that's hilarious. That's great. What does it mean? They go, well, it's a cat power-up. He's going to have whiskers and little kitty ears, and he's going to have a big tail and fur. So it's the closest to a furry, that I've ever been. And I said, okay, what do you want him to sound like? And, as a voice actor, maybe they'll tell you, maybe
Sure.
they're not. So they kind of looked at each other for a second, and then they went on the talkback. They went, click, we don't know. I was like, okay, great.
So how long did that take you?
I said, just give me a second, and I thought about it, and I was like, he can't be, Meowser can't be.
Right.
So I went Wildcat on it. I went, wow. But then I had to roll Bowser on top of it. So it was, wow.
How long did that take?
I did that until I could taste blood.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm feeling for you right now.
Yeah, I did. I know my voice is so weird. Which one of the reasons why I think Sabat wanted to throw me on the auditions. He's like, that guy's weird. So I did that, and then I had to come in. I believe it was the following day we were going to finish up, and I came in and I was all really nervous because the Japanese have to approve.
Sure. Oh, I can imagine.
Because I'm Bowser everywhere.
Oh, okay.
There's not a Japanese Bowser.
Oh.
I'm Bowser.
You're Bowser across the world.
As far as I know. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I go in and I go into the control room in the red room there, and I go, all right, what about the Meowser stuff? And they go, we're translating an email from Japan right now. And I was like, oh, no pressure. This is like, so I sat there kind of sweating a little bit, and all right. Somebody comes in, they said they loved it. Moving on. I was like,
Nice.
yeah. I went on and we did the rest of the stuff. I think I only did another hour for that day, and then I was back home on the ferry, go home.
Wow.
Could just take a ferry to go to work.
The interesting thing about that is how you did it, coming up with, a cat wouldn't do this and this and that. But you don't explain that to them, right? They just say...
No, yeah.
Right, you don't do the explanation. Well, I was thinking this when I did and this and this and this. They just listen to it and then make a decision. Is that correct?
And when I did the session for Odyssey, they had me on live, like on Skype or some other platform with Japan.
Sure.
While I was recording. So it was noon for me, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning the next day or something there, I forget. It was bizarre. And there was a laptop sitting in the cutting room, and I was like, what's this for? Because I don't see anybody.
Sure.
And they said, oh, the Japanese are watching. And I was like, great. So I started playing with it. I would go, and then I would look at the laptop and go, like, huh? So I started playing with them. But they thanked me when I was done. I had to be translated. The producers and most of those producers and everything speak pretty good Japanese.
Well, I guess they'd have to.
Yeah, I was lost. I was like, yeah, arigato, I gotta go, because I didn't know what to say.
It's interesting because we had Sabat and Justin Cook and a lot of
it was a great show.
Kara Edwards and Chris Rager and of course Josh, and it seems like when they're doing the voiceover, a lot of them are physical when they're doing it. So a lot of hand motions, a lot of that. Are you doing the same thing?
With Bowser. I have this thing about I have to do the hands. Yeah. Bowser's claws. I don't know what it is.
Sure.
I started really early on when I started doing Bowser. I found out that if I really want to get that, I do this, and I can't stop it. Now I don't even realize I'm doing it. I'm at my table at conventions, and I'm going. Oh yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to scare this 4-year-old. But stomping around and stuff. You learn.
Sure.
Early on that you can't be stomping your feet.
Right.
They can hear it. One of the first sessions that I was in, I was green, and they were like, "Okay, actually, it was for strikers because Bowser sort of flies in to the stadium, just and then kind of stomps around, blows some fire, and then he's back out. It wasn't very much to it." But they're like, "Okay, so he hits the ground, and then he's stomping around." And so I was actually stomping around. I'm like, doing this, and they're like, don't move your feet. And I was all like, sorry. And I never have since. So, what you have to do is you have to have your feet planted, and I'm sitting in a chair, but you use your body to get that sound. So if I'm roaring and stomping, it's going to be, I know it's way. I don't know how it works. I don't question it anymore. But
yeah, for all of you that listen to this podcast, you might want to check this out on YouTube as well. Check out the Purple Roads podcast channel on YouTube and see this, because it's something to see.
I'll never listen to it. I'll just watch it. I've watched all of them so far, and it's like I'd much rather watch it, because then you can get this, the thing where we're goofing.
Yeah. Well, you've got 2 purple dinosaurs and a Bowser.
I know. So I just said something about that, right? Where I'm like, it's like my life got so bizarre with this, with the Bowser thing and going to conventions. And Josh was the first Barney alum that I met.
Yeah.
That was in, it was Muscle Shoals.
Yeah.
With Confusion.
Last November.
Yeah. And November before
18.
last. Yeah. And Chris was there.
Yep.
And so that was the first. These guys were the first anime people that I had met.
Oh, okay.
Their table was right next to mine.
Josh and Chris Sabat.
Yeah.
No, Rager.
Chris Rager.
Me and Rager, yeah.
Yeah, and you were. I remember you had just had your ankle replacement done,
yes,
so you were not very mobile, and you were kind of a little
recovering.
He was recovering. Yes. But because I did the same thing you were talking about, I went, "Oh, did you do the voice of Barney?" And you were like, "No, I was in the suit." And I was like, "And how much did it weigh?"
50.
About 50 when I started. I think they got her down to about 30 by the time I left.
Now, when I started,
I think it was about 70 when you started.
Yeah, it was like 70, 75 pounds. When I
started, they had just reduced weight on it.
75 pounds.
But it's the same concept. It's the same concept, right? I was so excited to have gotten the job.
Right.
Yeah, you just go, sure, you don't care.
Can you wear a 75-pound suit? Oh, yeah, I do that all the time.
Right?
Yeah, well, one of my, I went for 6 months just telling, yes. Can you dance? Yes.
Oh, sure.
I can't dance. My mom had to teach me how to dance. She's professional.
Oh, and you see, and I'd be going in the theater, and they're like, "Oh, we want you to, you need to audition for this show." And I go, "You're going to make me dance?" And they'd be all like, "Yeah, there's some dancing." They try to soften it, and they'd be like, I don't want to dance, man." And what do they wind up doing? They wind up making me dance.
Well, sure.
And I'm not great. I mean, I'm not uncoordinated, but dancing feels funky to me. So, but I've done it. I was in Evita, and I had to do a lot of dancing in Evita. Carousel, I I didn't do very much. But it was all local theater. I mean, you had that reaction. You had that reaction like, oh my God, you were in Evita?
No, just like, go ahead.
Well, no, we were talking about this earlier before we started this, that you've done an opera.
Oh yeah, I was in a production of La Boheme.
Go ahead.
It was pretty. No, that's like first tenor. It's really loud. So I don't want to do that.
That's high.
I've been in a lot of yeah. I've been able to hit high C before. Now I'm 56.
Yeah, right.
And Bowser. I don't know if the high C ever work again. Maybe if I actually practiced more, if I kept the singing pipes lubricated. But my wife's always ganking on me. She's like, you need to sing more. That'll keep your voice in shape. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Because, man, I mean...
Listen to your wife.
I did Man of La Mancha, I did Carousel, Evita. I'm trying to think of all the musicals, but Titanic, the musical. I did a bunch of musicals.
And you just moved to Dallas, right?
I just did,
You need to get some theater auditions.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, the thing that worries me about theater is that they'll be all like, okay, well, it's going to be a 5-week run or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, I've got 2 cons scheduled during that time. The last musical I was in was Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I was that was at the theater back up in Bremerton. And I was Saint Aphrodisias, the headless statue, and I built the rig for it.
Oh, wow.
So the head drop thing people do with it.
Yeah.
You sneeze and the head falls off.
Right.
I just built
that up.
I used aluminum rods and a coat hanger, and I was able to push the shoulders of the robe up while you drop your head into your hand, and your shoulders are up here.
Right.
And it looks great, So I come down, I'm singing this song, and to Quasimodo and the other gargoyles.
Yeah.
And then I walked around the back of him, and I would sneeze, and my head would fall off. And I'd push it back up, and the audience would just go, what just happened? And I was all like, yeah, I did that.
That's awesome.
So you've done the live performances. What do you like better? Do you like the in the booth by yourself or out in front of a crowd?
Anything I can do that's creative. That's the thing. It's just performing. That, and I'm a big dopey show off. I think it started from being a kid. Yeah. First thing I remember doing in front of people was a talent contest, talent show, when I was in 6th grade, and at the little podunk school that I went to.
Yeah. So you're. I always talk about Texas as I'm a huge Texan, proud Texan. You're Texan as well.
Yeah, I grew up in the piney forests of deep East Texas, around Sam Rayburn Lake. So went to school in Broadus and decided that I didn't want to work at the plywood plant or haul trees out of the woods for the rest of my life. So I joined the Navy 7 months before I graduated. And graduation day, 12 days later, I'm in San Diego in boot camp. So
wow.
I did 6 years in submarine service. So
wow.
I know. See how multifaceted is this guy?
Well, and Josh, you got a kind of a similar. You didn't want to do any fishing for crawfish and working in the factory. In the same. You're in the same in Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's right. You're in Louisiana, huh?
Either crawfish or work at Calumet.
Yeah. So we were. I was so deep East Texas that Shreveport was like an hour away or an hour and a quarter. So yeah, right up against the border between Rayburn and Toledo Bend, and all that jazz over there. So.
Yep, my Uncle Cecil lived on Toledo Bend. My Uncle Cecil, you heard that?
I did. Right. You saw me. You saw the reaction to that. That it was almost like a little Cajun accent came out there.
Oh, it'll slip out.
Guilty.
I have heard it. I have seen it.
So it's been a weird ride so far. This whole thing. I was telling you a little while ago, we were sitting out there chit-chatting, and I was like, it took me forever to accept celebrity, because I just wasn't, I was selling propane and propane accessories for freaking 10 years after I became Bowser.
Right.
It was just, I'm Bowser, and I have to have a day job. You know, you got to have a survival job. So there I am selling. You know, I was a service tech for 13 and a quarter years, and I finally decided that what I was going to do is going to take my 401k and live on that while I go full time VO.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really getting any work, even though I'm Bowser.
Right.
Nobody cares. And I was like, all right, I see this thing, Charles Martinet, who's Mario.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's always at these shows. I should look into that. So I started looking into conventions, and I started booking cons. My first show was in Philadelphia at Too Many Games in June of 2018, and I booked that myself. And at about the same time, I had been sending introduction emails to some of the agents, and Celebworks picked me up, and they were like, yes. And you go into this show. Actually, I had 2 shows booked before one that they booked for me, but they helped me out so much. They're like, I'm gonna get some artwork done for you, and we'll have our printer people print you up some prints. Because what I had done, I mean, I was on my own, man.
Sure.
I had printed some 6x9 postcard things with some, the Bowser characters, different variations, and my stupid face, and it said Kenny James, voice of Bowser. And I had several hundred of those printed up, and I was going to take those with me. And then he goes, I'm going to get you some prints done. And they came in the mail, or UPS or whatever it was, and they were 8x10s, with color flashes behind them and stuff. And I was like, what am I getting into? I have no idea what I'm doing. And it has been a blast.
Well, I'm a photographer as well, and I did the headshots for his first ones. When Josh was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do these. Will you take some pictures?" And I don't think you really. I mean, you were like, "I hope."
It was a
I hope it goes well. I don't really know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna show up at the first one and see what happens.
I had no idea what I was doing. And then one of my best con stories comes from Confusion, which was November of that year of 2018.
Where was it?
That was Muscle Shoals,
okay,
Alabama. It was a first-year show. They've gone on and done a second one, so I guess they're continuing on.
Sure.
So I go to that show, and I have to say it was pretty dead, especially on Sunday, man. Bible Belt Sunday, and the volunteers were so sweet. I had my handler, and she just looked at me on Sunday, and she goes, "You know what it is? It's church." She goes, "After church, they'll show up. They'll be here. You watch." Crickets, man. I mean, the vendors were packing up, And I had a Q&A on Sunday at like 2:30 p.m. or something, or 2 o'clock, whatever it was. And I went to go over there, and there was nobody there. I felt really, this is my second show.
Sure, you thought, well,
right? And I'm all like, oh, this is great. So the agent, who was there with some other, I think Samantha Newark, was there, and some other people there with Celebworks, and so he goes with me to go to this Q&A.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's nobody here. So he says to the guy, the con guy, he goes, this is ridiculous. We should just call it, And he goes, no, there were 2 people here before. And he goes, and she's prettier than you are, so. So I'm like, okay, there's 2 people. So I'm like, all right, you guys just come and sit at the table.
Right.
And
ask
we'll
questions.
just chat, And to try to shorten this up a little bit, but she, this girl did not know who I was. Her boyfriend had been there on Saturday, and he brought her on Sunday, and she goes, she's like raising her hand to talk, and I go ahead. I did not know who you are. I had to look you up, and she goes, you're in my Google search. And I went, yeah, you can find me, on the internet, I'm Bowser, so, And she was quiet for a while. I'm talking to this guy, and she's just sitting there, and then after a while, she starts slowing down. And she's like, I do have another question. I said, go ahead. She goes, how do you get so much volume in your hair? I'm not kidding. And I'm sitting there going, Neri, my agent, is laughing so hard.
Oh, I'll bet.
And I felt bad because he's laughing. And so I answered the question. I told her exactly what I do to my hair.
Are you going to give us that tip here?
Oh, yeah.
What do you do to your hair?
My hair
for all
was
that volume?
My hair was shorter then, but with all this top, I had it kind of feathered back, and so I told her, I said, yeah, I wash it, I condition it, and then I brush it back with a blow dryer, and then I spray the hell out of it with Suave Max Hold. And she was like, okay. So, now it's a little bit different. It's longer and curlier. So
Your next convention, you should do a panel, hair tips.
Hair tips with Bowser.
Hair care.
Yeah, he does have that cool red kind of mohawk thing going. So
Next con we're at together, I'm making it happen. I'm gonna make that happen.
So besides the hair tips, another question that so what questions you get from the fans most often? What do they
pretty
really
typical,
want to know?
pretty typical stuff. How did you get the gig in the first place, and how long have you been doing it, and what was your first game? They'll ask me about whether you record with other actors. You get that one all the time. And you don't.
Right.
Not typically. I the first time I met Charles was at the studio, but I was on the way out of my session, and he was coming in. They were bringing him in from the airport, and I decided to sit in the lounge and wait for him because I had never met him. So I was all like, "Geez, Mario's
This
coming
is
in."
Mario.
Yeah,
Charles Martinet.
Mario, Luigi, Waluigi. I mean, all those things. Baby Mario, baby Luigi. And so I waited, and he came in, and they got him sushi, and that's when I knew my place. Because they were like, okay, so the lounge, there's snacks and stuff, help yourself. And then when Charles came in, they're like, hey, Charles, we got you sushi. I was like, all right. Got the Nintendo hierarchy, got it down, but I didn't really care for sushi much anyway. So
Yeah.
Well, we get very detailed questions. So do you remember in episode 6 of season 3 do you get those kind of questions?
I do, and not just those questions, but you get a lot of people's ideas for new games.
Oh,
or
I'll bet.
I think the story should go like this, or I've been working on this idea, and I wish I worked at Nintendo. And I go, I don't work at Nintendo.
Right.
I'm an independent contractor.
Right.
That's what voice actors are.
Yep.
For the most part. I mean, you can get under contract for people, but the old contract days, like the movie studios, that's a thing of the past.
Right.
People used to get signed on and be like, all right, we'll sign you for 2 years, and you made as many movies as you could in 2 years.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, the industry's changed a ton.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything's instantaneous now.
Yep.
So. I mean, I'm currently working, the whole reason, we haven't even talked about that, the whole reason I moved to Dallas was because of anime.
Well, let's talk about that.
I wanted to jump into anime because, I go back to, Speed Racer, obviously, and that was my first, probably almost everybody, at least our age, I shouldn't say our age, I don't know how old you guys are. I'm in my mid-50s, so...
yeah, I'm not far away, and yes, I've watched Speed Racer.
Speed
a
Racer
lot.
was I'd run home from school so I wouldn't miss it. See the same episodes over and over and didn't care. And then in the 80s, while I was in the Navy, I would actually use my VCR and tape the original Star Blazers. I loved Star Blazers.
I don't remember Star Blazers.
I loved it. And part of it was because of that ship, the Yamato, and
Right.
it looked like half submarine, half battleship, And then the wave motion gun, why they didn't just use that to begin with every time, I don't know. Because it was always pew, 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 and oh no, we're getting our asses kicked. Wave motion gun. And it's all done. Then they're on to the next episode, and I'm like, why didn't you just start with that? But it's not as
actually redoing that presently.
Oh,
yes,
really?
I saw that on Funimation Now, which I am a subscriber of, where I get my anime. Funimation Now. Anyway, think that'll get me anything? Probably not. I'm going there tonight, so I'm going to record. So.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm currently, they've got me cast in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and then the one I'm going for tonight, the session I'm going for tonight, I haven't signed an NDA or anything, but I don't want to step on the director's toes and just say what it is until I go and actually record. So, but yeah, I'm going to be doing another show.
So is it any different than Bowser? Is it?
Yeah.
Because that's just,
so
remember,
do you get lines in this part?
I get to speak English.
All right.
The character in Legend of the Galactic Heroes actually sounds mostly like me. I'm like Kirscheiss. Yeah, I can tell he's
so
a man.
nice.
Yeah, it sounds like me.
Yeah.
But
but we saw that with Kara Edwards. She does one too. That's one of her characters.
I saw it. She said that she goes like it's just my voice.
It's my voice.
Yay.
Yeah.
Those are the
So nice.
relatively easy ones. Sometimes I think it's easier to go over the top than it is to just speak normally. I'm one of the people that doesn't like to listen to myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know a lot of people that do, but I'm getting used to it.
Because isn't that important to actually hear what you're doing and be able to adjust and be able to?
I think so. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to fully rely on the director because if you're doing that, then you might as well just have them do it.
Sure.
But I mean, sure, they're going to spoon feed you.
Well,
some, because I want to know what they want.
Right.
And,
well, we went through that with Barney, being on Barney and Friends for all those years. Same thing. Sometimes the director would be so specific, and sometimes
Well, and
there's an emotion, do something, and
with my music background, I'm not trained in music. I mean, I can follow the dots to a certain extent, but when they hand me a chart and it's like dots. Well, this one goes up, so that one must go up, and this one goes back down. Okay, I can sort of figure that out. Mostly I learn by ear. I'm really quick by ear. But the musical background, the rhythm of it, and all that stuff all comes naturally to me. So it just plays right into doing anime because you got to be let in with beeps. So you get beep, 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 go.
right.
And at the same time, you're listening to the beeps and being prepared to jump on the beep. Then you're also trying to remember what the preview just was, because they'll play you the preview in Japanese. And so you've got this much time to cover. So your brain has to sort of get wrapped around how long that is.
Right.
And whether or not the character has a little pause in there somewhere. And hopefully you can nail it in one go, but it's not likely going to happen, It's like do it again, but slower.
Right.
I joke about that a lot, because the direction you get in theater or anywhere, it can be so simple and yet so annoying, because they'll be like, do it again, but better.
Right, yeah.
It's like, yeah, thanks.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do it again, but faster. Do it again, but slower. Do it again, but quieter.
Right.
Yet I really like that. We're going to keep that line. So we're just going to go ahead and play that one through and then just jump on the next one. So you're just ready to just jump on it. And like I said the other day, I was being recorded and I didn't even get all three beeps because we were rolling back and doing another. And I heard all I got was the third beep, and my brain still jumped on it. My brain knew tonally that it was the third beep.
Wow.
And so time-wise, I know the timing of the beeps.
Wow.
Doot, doot, deet, go. So all I heard was deet, go. And I started talking. And Brittany was directing, and Brittany Loudon, she goes, that was cool. And I was all like, yeah, I just heard the third beep and I had to go. I didn't even know if they had pushed record. But the engineer's recording a lot of the time anyway, because you never know what you're going to catch wild.
Sure.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting you were just saying about some of the stuff you haven't been trained in.
Yeah.
But I think there's an aspect of it, right? Like, you can only train someone so much. You can't train someone to be Bowser, right? There's an aspect of it that's Kenny James, right?
I like to think that, especially because my Bowser is so much different than Scott Burns was.
Sure.
And,
in what ways?
Well, I think mine is, I don't know what really term to use. It's definitely more growly.
Okay.
His was more of a human growl kind of sound.
Sure.
Like they made him talk.
Sure.
Mario. And me, I'm like,
I'm telling you, that's just ringing through my. I'm looking for a way out of this studio here. We need a back door here.
His cans are vibrating.
Yes. Yeah, but
I don't know where that comes from, man.
Yeah, there's probably some explaining you need to do here about what.
It's really a weird thing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there's an aspect of that, right? That is you brought to it.
Yeah.
That you can't really explain. There's a training aspect.
I think it turned out a lot different, and it has evolved. I mean, it's been 15 years, and I started off just trying to do what I thought they wanted, which was I thought it was all Scott, and it just sort of morphed kind of by itself. I'm actually kind of glad that I got introduced to Bowser on a game that didn't really have that much Bowser content in it, because the next one after that was where I really needed to blast off as Bowser. And I'm kind of looking at anime the same way. You know, I've got a small part on a series that doesn't have a lot of screaming and hollering and jumping up and down and yelling and, you know, the overreacting.
Congrats.
Thanks.
But just kind of getting your feet wet.
Right. Yeah, it's breaking me in on the process.
Sure.
Because I'm still learning some of the terminology. They'll throw a term at me, and I'll go, "What do you mean?" Oh, well, if we say that, that means this. And I'm like, okay.
For example,
well, for like wild, it's like we're grabbing stuff wild. I was like, I'd never heard that term in the studio before. So she's just all like, "Well, we're not going to do the beeps and stuff," and it's just you just say it. Oh, okay, I can do that. That's just talking. And there was something else the other day, though. It had to do with the reactions, and I can't remember what it was. But and then they were pointing out not in Japanese.
Right.
Yeah.
NIJ.
Yeah, NIJ.
MNS. Mouth not shown.
Mouth not shown. See, those are the good ones because you don't have to worry about the flaps. You don't have to worry about flaps. It's like the back of your head. I just told him this character that I have. One of the first characters anybody's seen, or not very many of them, this guy's got a big old bald spot.
Animated bald spot. Why?
Yeah, it was showing the back of his head, you know, or the shot was from behind of him. He's the first officer on a merchant vessel, but they're also smugglers. And the captain's sitting, and my character was standing, and it was a two-shot from behind.
Yep.
And he's got this giant bald spot. I just spit all over the place.
We'll get it in post.
It was
good.
it was hilarious. And I went in there for a session a couple days ago, and we laughed about it again because it's like, oh, yep, there's the bald spot in a whole different scene. And I was like, oh, God, why do they keep picking on this guy?
So did you get some tips from these guys, from some of the other voiceover actors?
You know what? I haven't had time.
Okay, you just jumped in.
My meeting, well, I moved. And then, you know, I started getting contact. Josh Greeley, I got in contact with him because I knew he lived right there in Flomo. And the first thing he tells me, he goes, "Where are you living?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm over on this street." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, that's over by the Super Target we go to all the time." And I was all like, "Oh, okay, you are close by, you know." And then we did Reno, and I got to know more of the guys. There was a great crowd in Reno. It was me, and it was Justin Cook and Ian Sinclair and Monica, and who else was there? Somebody else was there. I don't remember. It was a fun weekend, though. We just all goofed.
Yeah.
You know, we were staying at the Atlantis, and it was fun.
Always about the food, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know. Dinner is a big thing because you sit at your table all day. I hardly ever go to the green room. Well, I do go to the green room, but it's mostly for schmoozing and to get coffee or a Red Bull.
Nice.
I love to go in the green room, see who's in.
Sure.
And who's sitting around. Oh, it's Shatner. Yeah.
Yes.
So favorite fans that you've met on these that are just huge fans of Bowser? Reactions?
Oh, man. I had, right here, well, I've had two celebrity reactions that were nearly identical, but worlds apart.
All right.
Basically, Terry Farrell from Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
When I introduced myself to her in the green room, sitting there with John Wesley Shipp, and I had met John a couple times, and so I walked over and I was like, "Are you following me?" And he goes, "No, stalking you." Yeah. And I'm like, "Ha ha 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 ha." And then Terry Farrell, "Hi, I'm Terry." I'm like, "I'm Kenny. I'm the voice of Bowser for Nintendo." She goes, "Shut the up." Sorry about that. Bleep. And the same thing happened with Justin Roiland at a whole different show. I told him who I was. He's like, shut the up. And I was like, they love me. With Terry, it was more like, my brother's going to freak out. We have to get a picture right now, and then you trade prints and, And Justin, I asked him in the green room, I said, if you got somebody that I can sign a print for, come over to the table before you leave. He was there on Saturday only, and his queue was packed, And he was getting ready to leave. And I walked over and said, don't forget to come over and get a print if you want one. Oh, yeah. And he's still signing away. He's signing. And then he comes walking over to the table with these other people that are trying to get him out the door.
Yep.
And he walks over and he goes, this one. Picks a print. And I go, all right, you want me to make it out to somebody? He looked at me like I was stupid and goes, yeah, Justin. And I was like, I freaked out.
Did you have that reaction, or did you keep it cool?
It was so cool. I was like, all right. Oh my God. And I signed the thing, and he had these little trading card things, Rick and Morty things, and that's all I had because all his stuff got packed up already. I had this thing, so he signed it real quick. And so
it's a trip because we went through this when we went on the first Barney's Big Surprise tour. So we traveled. We show up in New York, and there's John Bon Jovi.
Every show.
That's awesome.
Every show.
Yeah, every show. I remember them asking me, hey, Kerry, can you jump back in real quick? We need to do a meet and greet. I'm like, who?
That's intermission when you're getting out resting.
No. This was the end. I was going home. Everyone had left. Everyone had left, and they said, can you jump back in? I said, well, who is it? They said, oh, it's the drummer of U2.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
And same thing, right? I have to be Barney. They didn't want to see me. They want to see Barney.
Yeah.
So you're doing that, but in your head, you're just losing it. And for me, I realized, and I think you're realizing it too, they're just fans. Like he's a parent.
Turns out they're regular people.
Yeah.
At least most of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
I try to tell fans that all the time. They're just like, I've had poor cosplayers and stuff. I mean, they're in anime cosplay, and they're still walking up to my. They're walking up to my table. You're not the first. And I know. And they're walking up to my table, and they start crying.
Yeah.
And it's like, she's a super fan. I mean, won't even come up in the queue.
Yeah.
And so I come around the table, and I go out, and I go, hi, and I'm meeting this poor girl that's about to fall apart. And I'm like, hold on a second, go and I'll sign something.
Sure.
Here. And then they just come unhinged.
Sure.
It's so bizarre. I go, I'm just a regular guy who just happened to get lucky break,
But it's yes and no.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Here, we talk about what you do though, and how you take this so seriously, and how you're creating, and how you're doing, and what that's really where it comes from. Is that you forget about all that other stuff.
And I do have the ability to do that. I still don't know how.
Yeah, I don't either, but it's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
It is really weird.
You mentioned,
but it's so cool.
You mentioned in Sinclair earlier being together in Reno, and we had a conversation about this very thing.
I'm sorry.
In Sinclair plays Whis in Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, okay.
And he's a nemesis of Majin Buu's.
Oh, okay.
He's just an excellent actor beyond his part in Dragon Ball Z.
A lot of voices in.
Yes, and we were talking about. He was like, you know what? I was doing this for a while, and I got burnt out on it. I didn't want to do it anymore, And then I had a second, and I looked, and I was like, you know what? Sparkle magic. That's what it is. It's sparkle magic we have. These other people, they don't get to do what we do, right?
Yeah.
And then they come up, and we have that power. Sparkle magic. And he's right. You know what I mean?
I want to try to remember that. I want to borrow that.
It really is. I agree with him.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ian.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're sitting up there at the sushi bar eating some chow, man. Me and Ian and Justin.
Is this after you didn't get the sushi from earlier?
Way after, because this was just a month or two ago in Reno. Okay. So yeah, I mean, sitting there with some of the guys, man, and I was all like, I'm being included, because Josh Greeley, Ian Sinclair, Justin Cook, we're sitting and we're just palling around.
That's it.
And it was so much fun. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to move, because the anime actors community just seems so tight, you know. They're just really great. And I'm like, I want to go be part of that.
And once again, that this is all happening in Texas it's such a thrill. People still can't believe Barney was shot here in Texas, and all the things we're doing here and all the creative people that we have here is pretty amazing.
In the Pacific Northwest, you know, everybody's like, why are you going to move to Texas?
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm from Texas, so it's like going back home, sort of.
Sure.
I mean, a lot more urban than home was. And I lost track of what I was going to say. The other thing was, they were like, why are you moving? That's what it was. And I was like, because that's where the anime scene is basically centered. The anime dub world is centered right here. So I was like, I'm going. You know, I want to go play. That's what I kept telling. The first time I met J. Michael Tatum and Brandon McGinnis was in a show in Indianapolis, and I said, I gotta pick up and move. I said, I want to come play. They go, you should. You know, and everybody always says that.
Sure.
You know, sure, you should move. And
right.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You can come and join us, and you know, because when I say it that way, I want to come play.
Right.
I mean, a lot of being able to go in and do voice work, it's like you're in. Charles Martinet says it all the time. He's like, it's a big sandbox.
Yep.
And they put me in the sandbox, and I get to play. And I like that analogy, you know. So I wanted to come play, and everybody was so welcoming that we put our house up for sale. And I got really lucky. My house sold over a weekend.
Wow.
Put it for sale. I think they listed it on Thursday. Monday we were signing it away. So
and coming back home.
And packed up. We had most of our stuff packed up already. We were ready for it. So, and we drove here. It took 3 days, and with the cat in the car.
That's awesome.
With the cat in the car.
Well, welcome.
She was very good. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been super.
Been such a blast having you.
Well,
here.
I hope you got everything out of me that you need. You know?
Well, I can tell you right now, we got to have you back because we're going to want to hear about this anime journey and the road you're going down.
And I mean, and then I can talk about submarines too. Usually, I wind up talking about the military for like a long time because you get me started, and it's. I said to you, I was like, I don't know how I can fill up an hour, you know, or whatever, and it's like. I wind up getting diarrhea of the mouth, and then I don't stop talking.
I think you find out that the fans that watch this show, they love it. You know, they want to hear the stories and why and how you did it and all of that, because it really is fascinating. And you know, you hear this voice, but then it's like, well, there's a story behind that.
Yeah. I've got a varied background. I tell you, I've done a bunch of stuff. It's been a pretty good run so far. I hope it continues.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
Please come back and we can talk about this anime
That'll be
journey.
Awesome. I will do it anytime.
I love it. Thank you all for watching. Can't wait to see you next week. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your purple road. I love you guys, and we'll see you next week.